The election lawn signs are down. The election results are in. Newton will have some new faces on the Board of Aldermen and the Newton School Committee. Who's in? Who's out? And with only 18% of Newton voters showing up at the polls, who really exercised power this election season? Political commentator Ron Lipof and the Patches editor Melanie Graham will be here to talk all about it. It's the post-election edition of Newton Newsmakers, and it starts right now. Newton Newsmakers is made possible through the volunteer production efforts of the employees of mass media and big city publishing, and through the support of Newton residents like you. Hi and welcome to Newton Newsmakers. I'm Charlie Shapiro. Most would probably agree that this year's municipal election was more contentious than usual, at least in some ways. From voters legally challenging a candidate's right to even be on the ballot, to a member of the Board of Aldermen endorsing a challenger over a colleague. I have a little bit of experience in that one. There were even serious questions of media fairness. If you wanted some drama, you certainly got your wish this election season. So why don't we just start off at first and go through some of the races, including the contested and uncontested, and then we will get to our guests in just a couple of moments. So let's do the Board of Aldermen first, and we'll start off with Ward 1. Carlton Merrill and Jay Ciccone victorious over Janet Sturman. And moving right along to Ward 2, an uncontested race, which many, in fact most, were and usually are. Susan Albright and Marcy Johnson retaining their seats in an unopposed race. Ward 3, Ted Hess-Mahan, Greer Tan-Swiston still in office, also in an unopposed race. In Ward 4, Lenny Gentile and Amy Sangiolo, both getting about the same number of votes, also in an uncontested race. In Ward 5, Deb Crossley and Brian Yates. I'm not sure that's a current picture of Brian. We got to talk to him about that. But Deb Crossley and Brian Yates holding on to their seats. In Ward 6, I lost out to Vicki Danberg and Greg Schwartz. Congratulations to them. In Ward 7, Ruth Ann Fuller, uncontested race, and Mark Laredo, who was on the school committee and ran uncontested and essentially didn't really even do a campaign, got into office with 4,175 votes. And then in Ward 8, the other contested at-large race, it was Mitch Fishman, Tom Sheff, and David Kalis. Kalis and Fishman victorious. We also had some ward races as well. And it was Lennon, Linsky, Salvucci, Rice, Blazer, Baker, and Lappin all running unopposed. Here's your new Board of Aldermen starting on January 1st. On the school committee side, Jeff Epstein, and that's Ward 1. Then in Ward 2, Margaret Albright and Jonathan Yo. And again, this was the Ward 2 race. We'll talk a little bit more about that one because that was pretty interesting. Jonathan Yo retaining his seat on the board. And let's go to the next slide is Ward 3, Angela Pitter-Wright. Angela getting on the board uncontested. Ward 4, it was Josh Krinsman and Diana Fisher-Gomberg. And Diana Fisher-Gomberg winning with a 41-71. And that was an interesting race. We'll talk about that one as well. And we also had Ward 5, and this was Sue Rosenbaum losing her current seat, the only other incumbent actually to lose a seat, to Steve Siegel, a structural engineer. Steve winning out after a loss 2 years ago for the same seat. Claire Sokoloff, the chair of the school committee, unopposed in her race in Ward 6, so she's reelected as well. In Ward 7, Matt Hills, also unopposed. Matt's reelected. And in Ward 8, Margie Ross-Dector, 4,754 votes. Here's a look at your new school committee with Epstein, Yo, Angela Pitter-Wright, Fisher-Gomberg, Steve Siegel, Claire Sokoloff, Matt Hills, and Margie Ross-Dector. And of course, the mayor is an ex officio member of the school committee. Let's turn to our guests. And we have a couple of people who have been following this stuff very, very closely. Ron Lipof, who is a member of the Lipof family dynasty, let's call it, here in the city of Newton. First of all, Ron does some political analytics for New TV, Newton News, and just a guy that knows what he's doing, and we're very happy to have you here. So thanks for coming in.
Good to be here, Charlie.
All right, and if you've heard of the Newton Patch, Melanie Graham is here. Melanie is the editor of Newton Patch, and I got to say that your coverage of this was absolutely fantastic, factual, on the money, and we really appreciate having multiple alternatives covering electoral politics.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, and if you're not familiar with the Patch, you can go to newton.patch.com. You'll find out more about it. All right, so here's the story. We want to take a look at the contested races. Ward 2, I think we'll start with that one because that was probably the most contentious from the perspective of who actually would be in the race and then ultimately who won.
Well, it was clearly the most contentious race. It is, frankly, I think, unfortunate that there was so much distraction about whether or not someone should be on the ballot that it clearly took away from the issues and from the debate and from the campaign of both of those contenders. If you happen to have seen the League of Women Voters debate between the two of them, that was good stuff. That was good conversation, and it added value to the campaigns. But it was so much about whether or not Jonathan should be on that ballot that I think it really distracted from it. And as a result, you have everything from sympathy vote to appropriate vote. But it's distracted, and it's a shame that it had to happen that way.
All right, now, Melanie, you follow this obviously pretty closely. When you were writing about it, you sort of kept it factual rather than opinion-oriented, which tends to be what Patch does, but obviously there was some contentiousness there. What I thought was interesting was that it wasn't actually Margaret Albright making the challenge. Certainly some of her supporters were involved with that. I mean, there's no question about it. However, it really wasn't her, and it seems like she almost got caught in the middle of something and in some ways wasn't sure how to get out of that.
But throughout the whole issue, from start to finish, she stayed out of it. She always, whenever I would call her to talk about it, she would always try to say that she's really focusing on the issues of the race, which I think some would agree. Like you said, it's unfortunate that, something like this kind of overshadowed the issues of the race. But it was interesting to sort of see her along the way. She didn't really comment on it. She really kind of stuck to her issues, that she brought up over and over again.
Number one was full day kindergarten.
Full day kindergarten. She was really pushing for that the whole way. And a lot of the people that she spoke with, both on the campaign trail and on the committee, have shown some agreement with some of the issues that she's brought up in the past, which is why I think it would have been such a great race if this other factor of Jonathan's residency didn't sort of get in the way of the race. I think it really would have been a pretty close race, and looking at the two contestants next to each other.
All right, so the other, let's go on to Ward 4, school committee. We'll stick with the school committee for a couple of minutes here since we're doing that. Two really terrific candidates by all accounts. I mean, this was an interesting race because there was no sort of insider-outsider. It was a different type of insider versus another different type of insider. I mean, you had Josh Krinsman, who's an attorney at the State House, has worked for Senator Cream. You had Diana Fisher-Gomberg, who is very involved with the PTO and the schools, and so you really had sort of the State House delegation on one end, and you had the PTOs, which is more of a localized type of thing, more of a grassroots aspect on the other end. Melanie, what do you think?
I was following this race, the whole time, right up until the last ballot was counted. I knew it was going to be so close. In talking to both of the candidates, both of them had such great ideas, such strong points in terms of background. Josh, with his experience, with the State House and everything, bringing that kind of experience into a school committee in a budget year and multiple budget years that are really tough, where they're really trying to figure out how to get the numbers down and bring in more state funding, more grants, things like that. That's a great thing to bring to the table. But at the same time, with all of Diana's experience, with her advocacy work, and with her, she was showing up to school committee meetings and advocating for different modulars at Burr Elementary School. She's worked with all the people that are in the community that are going to be affected by the school committee decisions. It was close. I couldn't call it. I didn't know which way it was going to go.
And the woman had more lawn signs than I think I've ever seen in my life.
Well, I'll tell you, this was the most civilized race of them all. It was the most equally paired race of them all. They both would have added great value to the school committee. I happen to think, and the tab got it wrong, because they were endorsing Josh, I happen to think that this is the right thing. When you have Margie Ross-Dector and Matt Hills on the school committee in particular that bring policy and budgetary type of focus, notwithstanding the fact that I think it would have been quite valuable, as you say, from a granting perspective, but to bring Diana on from really the PTO perspective, where she can now go and be more of the voice for, I want these programs returned. I want these fees reduced. That's where Diana's probably going to go. And I think balancing that with, a Margie and a Matt who focus on the managerial, the policy, and the budgetary, I think it's just a great addition, notwithstanding the fact that Josh would have been as well. But the most civilized race, the most appropriately paired contenders, and either way would have been great for the school committee.
It also had the best photo op of anything during the race.
Oh, definitely.
There was one photo with Josh and Diana holding each other's signs, which you really don't see that often.
Right.
And I don't think we could have lost either way in that race. So moving on to Ward 5 School Committee. Here's a really interesting one. Steve Siegel ran 2 years ago. Sue Rosenbaum was elected. She beat him 2 years ago. Steve did something that a lot of people don't do. He broadened the circle of people that he got in touch with. Am I reading this right? And that helped him?
From the first time around?
Yes.
Yeah, there certainly was some of that. Again, two very good candidates. Mm-hmm. School committee gets value out of both. Steve did learn from his first campaign. He did broaden a bit, but unfortunately, and I know Susan and I adore Susan, and she did a great job on the school committee, but she is not a Jonathan Yo, or she's not someone who is very visible, who is aggressive, who is out there. She's more of take it in, be thoughtful about it, add value, and then you go and you compete against someone like Steve, and it's really going to be about, in a low turnout, getting the vote out. Mm-hmm. And there's an aggressiveness to campaigning in those times that you just have to do.
Well, Sue was out though all the time with her mom. I mean, I saw her at the farmers market constantly. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not like she wasn't out campaigning. She was. To me, it seemed like Sue Rosenbaum has been a very, very consistent, almost guaranteed vote to go along with the chair of the school committee, Claire Sokolov. I can't think of a time that there was a difference in their votes over the last 2 years, and I could be wrong, but I don't think there was. So it was a very interesting dynamic because the school committee chair, Sokolov, did a robocall for Sue, was campaigning actively for Sue. And whether that's out of a loyalty thing because of an incumbent and another incumbent, or whether it was just the chosen candidate.
Steve will increase the dialogue on the school committee.
One of the things that Steve was talking about, obviously the education policies and all of that, but with the need to reconstruct or fix or replace some of the buildings, the guy is a structural engineer. That's a very tangible, specific, professional skill to bring to the school committee, and I don't think he really pushed that as much 2 years ago, because generally you want to talk about your love for education and kids and all of that, but it seems he had all of that, and this time really pressed on the fact that there was a specifically applicable skill set from a professional level.
Well, I think, seeing what Steve did sort of along the campaign trail with the building infrastructure in the public schools, that's something that's really in the public eye right now. In the last couple of months, over the last year, it's really been something that's been brought to the forefront of both the Board of Aldermen and the school committee. And I think so now the public is finally kind of like waking up and realizing, and it's something that has been going on for a while, but now it's really in the public view and in the public eye and in these committees. So when a candidate comes out and is really stumping on that particular issue that people are really focusing on, more people are going to come out and support that. At least in my opinion, I think that's what's going to happen.
So it's going to be
She's absolutely right, because
committee.
The CIP now.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. It's
right.
Timely, very timely.
All right, let's move on to some alderman races. There were, in fact, 3 of them, and we'll start off with Ward 1, Alderman at Large, Jay Ciccone, Carlton Merrill. Jay is now going into, it will be his 3rd term. He is the chair of the Public Safety and Transportation Committee, and frankly, I can't remember how many terms Carlton has been on specifically. Janet Sturman was the 3rd candidate. Janet was not successful, but in fairness to Janet, I don't think she really campaigned that much. She did the debate, she was out there, she certainly was outspoken, some blogs, some different things, there was some support there, but it didn't seem to me as though there was a dynamic, consistent campaign, although, as we know, that doesn't always win either.
Well, I'm not sure it really would have mattered here because you do have two very solid candidates that that the ward likes and is appreciative of, and they're doing a great job. These are passionate guys that know what they're doing. So I happen to agree with you. It was not the most robust campaign on her part, but I'm not sure it would have made much more of a difference.
All right, I want to skip over to the Ward 8 one, and we'll save the one that I was involved with for last. Mitch Fishman and David Kalis, who will be in his first term. And I've got to say, David Kalis, who was very, very strongly supported by Margie Ross Dector from the school committee.
The difference with David Kalis, and you may remember when we were working the results on New TV that evening, I did project at the top of the hour before results came in. I thought David would be the largest vote getter citywide as a newcomer. And the reason is this: not only was he, with or without other folks, everywhere, not only did he campaign really hard, not only does he fit the proper structure and makeup of an alderman who lives in the city with children in public schools, et cetera, but every time this guy spoke, the audience would say, he's a smart guy. I understand it. He knows how to articulate his view of an issue very concisely for the layman to understand, without any condescension, without any arrogance. There is just, it's about delivery. It's about a good candidate. And he really did that. And you heard, every day you heard, that's a smart guy. Every day you heard, that's a guy that gets it. And, you know, when that just continues to flow and there is nothing in his race contentious, that's when you get to go there. The other issue is, I do think with better voter turnout, I don't think that
the Chef and Fishman would have been so far
I don't
apart.
think they would have been so far apart. I'm not sure that Tom could have overtaken Mitch, but I don't think they're that far apart.
I got to tell you one story about David Kalis. So we were all at a candidates debate. It was at Golda Meir House. David Kalis, when it got to be his turn, spoke in Russian. There are some Russian-speaking folks that are at Golda Meir House. There were 2 or 3 in the room. I have to say, it really was a Kodak moment, so to speak, if you're old enough to remember that stuff. It was really terrific, and there were certain moments throughout all of these different campaigns that were like that. And I think he's going to do a terrific job on the board of aldermen. Tom Sheff is a great guy. And loves this city, and I think he's going to stay involved, and he'll be He'll be as terrific as he has always been. And Mitch Fishman is a whiz when it comes to zoning matters and being on land use. And so that was a race where you really had 3 terrific people as well. All right, it's the Ward 6 race. So you have me, you have Vicki Danberg, and you have Greg Schwartz. And I'm going to throw this out, and you can push back on it as hard or as little as you'd like. I feel that Greg didn't necessarily run for office as much as he was run for office. And I know that's going to take a lot of flack, me saying that, because he was out there and he did campaign to a certain degree, but nowhere even remotely close as much as Vicki and I did. Is that a fair statement?
It is a fair statement, certainly from where you sit, but here's the issue. You have kind of moon, stars, and sun aligning against you in the race, okay? Again, I'll say it, and it has to be said, with greater voter turnout, I'm not sure, and the jury's really out for me on this one, because you did have a successful combination in Vicki and Greg, and sometimes it can backfire big time. He was somewhat pulled along than out there leading the pack on his own campaign, sure.
Is that how you see it as well?
I completely agree. I mean, that's exactly how I saw it. I mean, you were out there all the time. Vicki was out there all the time. Greg, you saw him out there, but maybe not as much. But I think it was just a combination of factors that all kind of played into it and just ended up all lining up, and then you have the results. And I think with a bigger voter turnout, I think it probably would have been a much closer, maybe more heated race, and it would have come down to a lot fewer votes. I think that has a huge part to this.
Very unusual for an incumbent to go against a colleague and endorse a mutual challenger.
You also had a very direct TAB endorsement.
Right.
in your race,
Right.
which some feel,
Or lack of endorsement.
well, but some feel, was more opinionated than need to be for the tab.
Right.
Maybe not.
The tab endorsements in this situation almost seem to be punitive and personality-based rather than issue or fact-based.
You're going to have different perceptions. Some feel the tab endorsements, were spot on, and they appreciate getting the extra insight from having them speak with other people, and others feel that it was way out of line.
Right. And one of the ways that I fell down, frankly, is I don't think I got to be as close to people that were not automatically supporting me as I should have. In other words, I don't think I essentially didn't schmooze well enough in some ways, for lack of a better phrase.
Well, it's hard to do it in one first term, a new term, and
Right.
That's a challenge. But on the flip side, look what you did with Silver Alert. That became a model for the governor, and that is in your first term as an alderman to do something that really matters and have your fingerprints on something for time and eternity that actually gets pushed out across the Commonwealth. There are folks that spend 10, 12, 14 terms on the board, and you can't remember anything that they got involved in that they really spearheaded. So, it is a challenge, and unfortunately, and we're all big men and women around the table,
Yeah.
it is, you talked about Sue being a vote for Claire. It is about, how many on that board will stand up and disagree with the mayor on certain issues, how many will go off and spearhead something on their own in the first term. Not a lot of people. And when you do that, there's going to be conflict, certainly in personality.
A lot of the voters that go out don't really, sometimes they don't really follow the politics very closely, and they don't really base their vote on a whole lot of things other than personality. That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and you find this local politics, state, national, everything. I mean, people go out and vote because of who they like, who their friends say that they like. And if when an endorsement comes in that's personality based, you're going to get a lot of people who are going to not really pay attention to the politics necessarily, and they're going to go with the personality based vote because that's sort of what they always fall back on.
It was very interesting. It is a shame in a city like Newton to see 18% voter turnout.
Yeah.
Even in an off year, I get that, but it's just a shame. You would think it'd be more engaged.
I was really surprised. I mean, this was my first Newton election, and I've come from small towns where not a lot of people vote because they don't really know what's going on. But in a city that's at the forefront of so many things in the state and such a focus of so many people in the state and such a political city, I was expecting a lot more people to be out there and standing around the polls and coming out and supporting the candidates, but that just didn't seem to be the case.
All right, so just a quick throw out this at the very end here. Mayor's race in 2 years, okay? All right, I know. But 2 years from now, we're talking about potentially either re-electing Seti Warren, or if Seti gets on to some other position someplace, it would be a wide open race. What happens in 2 years?
If he works hard in the next year and does some real tangible things to help move the sign of revenue in the future forward, so that we can really believe that some things will turn around, so as the economy hopefully does turn around, we'll be positioned to benefit from it. I think he gets reelected if he wants to. There's already been some discussion whether or not he runs. If he doesn't run again, it is wide open. And you have Ruth Wells and you have Scott Lennon who say they'd like to consider that. I personally think, and you see it in the Republican presidential primary right now, times call for different types of skill set. A business person approaches problem solving differently than a social worker, differently than a medical professional, certainly differently than a career politician and a lawyer. Okay, it's just a different approach to problem solving. And as much as we're seeing it on the national level, I do think that in the future, if the mayor does not choose to run, and it is wide open, I don't think it's more of the same from the past. I don't think it's state reps. I don't think it's medical professionals. I think it's business people who come in and say, you know what, I don't need to be like Teddy Mann, mayor for life, but I have an agenda and I take a whole different approach to problem solving, and I'll come in for a term or two, but I will set this city, this great city, on an appropriate course, which has to be done 3, 4, 5, 7 years down the road, not what's going on right now in the city.
Well, you're a business person. Have you thought about it?
Well, it's funny. I get that question often now because I preach that that's what is needed. Look, mayor of Newton is probably the best job in the land, and I've thought about it, and I'd love to be mayor one day. in the next 12 months, I couldn't even consider it with the personal life that I'm facing in my business.
All right, Ron Lipof, thank you for coming in. Really appreciate it. And Melanie Graham from Newton Patch. And once again, what's the web address for you guys?
Newton.patch.com.
Thank you both for coming in. Really appreciate it, Melanie and to Ron. Now, a couple of thoughts before we go. First, thank you for the honor of serving you on Newton's Board of Aldermen for the past 2 years. It was a long and competitive campaign, and unfortunately, we weren't successful in the re-election effort. However, I am very proud of the work I've done over the past 2 years as a citywide alderman to help make our city a safer and better community. It's not often the governor points to a first-term alderman's program, the Newton Silver Alert, as a model for the entire Commonwealth. And I got to tell you, it feels great to have had a role as a member of Governor Patrick's Silver Alert Working Group in shaping something that will help keep those at risk safer throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Now, some thank yous. First, to my family, my wife Debbie and our 2 children, David and Rebecca. They've been very supportive, tolerant, and have helped me stay grounded and focused. Also, thank you to everyone who cast a vote for me and those who displayed my orange and blue Shapiro lawn signs you saw all over town in neighborhoods of all economic levels. And to those who endorsed me, thank you. To those who contributed, held coffees, helped with mailings, and the countless other ways so many different people pitched in. Thank you to my supportive aldermanic colleagues, the folks I work with. Especially thank you to Alderman Brian Yates, Jay Harney, Jay Saccone, Lenny Gentile, and also to school committee member Jeff Epstein. These independent thinking gentlemen went out of their way to provide me with guidance and support. I'm highly appreciative of that. They are tireless in their work on behalf of our fellow residents, and I appreciate their work too. Thank you to Peg Hannigan, the godmother of Democratic politics in the city of Newton, and to Bob Burke for their unwavering support, clear thinking, and straight talk. Their confidence in me has been inspiring. I'm also grateful to Ron Lipof, Jeff Seidman for their support and their sense of humor. A special mention goes to volunteers Peter and Rita Clapes, Don Johnson, Nathaniel Lichten, Len McBain, Gloria Gavris, and to Andy Zaff for helping out as campaign treasurer. Andy and I were in kindergarten at Countryside. It's been a little while since we attended that school, but I'm very happy to still have him as a friend. I'm particularly grateful to the Newton firefighters and the Newton Police Associations for their endorsement and support. Tom Lopez and John Daly, thank you. You represent the men and women who put themselves on the line every day to keep all of us safer, and you are appreciated. And a big extra thanks to those first responders, especially the firefighters who took their own personal time to help out on Election Day. You know, elections are a snapshot in time. Results depend on many things, including who and how many actually turn out to vote. I congratulate Vicki and Greg on their combined team win. It was a unique strategy, and I hope the city benefits from their service. Newton has many challenges before us. My plan, to stay involved and continue to be an independent and sensible voice, speaking out on the issues that matter to the people all across Newton. I'll also continue producing and hosting this program, Newton Newsmakers. I want to try to keep you informed and provide some context to the major issues facing our city. I hope you'll tune in now and then. Again, thank you. See you around the city soon. Meanwhile, that's it for this edition of Newton Newsmakers. I'm Charlie Shapiro. The show's available online, newtonnewsmakers.org 24/7, and we'll see you again next time on Newton Newsmakers.
Newton Newsmakers is made possible through the volunteer production efforts of the employees of Mass Media and Big City Publishing, and through the support of Newton residents like you.